the most important thing is that you don't feel judged, that you feel that you are in a place that you can speak up and you don't put limit on your thoughts. Humor is the closest that you can get to someone without touching it. So I feel that is kind of the intention. If we make people smile, it's something that is chemical.
So look, as creatives, we all crave a space where our ideas can thrive somehow. But how do you create that space while balancing the structure, deadlines, and also collaborations? My guest this week is Carmen. She's a designer and the co-founder of the creative studio Niceshit, where she and her team create unforgettable worlds.
I was not thinking about it, I didn't know that will bring me this answer back then. For me, it was I don't feel creative anymore. I want to do something different. I like to know new people from all over the world. I like being in contact with clients. So I think that decision 20 years ago, I wouldn't thought of that would bring me where I'm now, but it is.
We also dive into how emotions and humor shape her designs, making them relatable and impactful for audiences everywhere. Carmen's journey is all about embracing change, staying open to new perspectives, and also finding creativity in unexpected places. So, without further ado, please welcome Carmen. You were telling me about how it's sometimes better to maybe prioritize one thing over having to put everything or fit everything into your schedule. And I noticed that sometimes I just want to have things somehow flow into what I'm doing. But I noticed that's also not working, because then I start messing up my prioritization and I don't have a priority really. So I jump between things. So since you're working in creative space, because I feel like you're a creative soul, your mind probably is also in many places at once. Yeah. How is it for you?
I think I feel in general for people it's really depends. I understand that we need a little bit of structure, but I think the level of structure for everyone is different. I personally feel super rewarded when I can do a lot of things at the same time, and I feel super, I don't know, that I achieve more if I can jump from one thing to the other. But I understand that we live in a place that is structured somehow. We work during the day and we sleep during the night. So I think there is a little bit of structure that we need.
Some people do it different.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I know that, but I think I think it's super valuable, and I respect different way of being creative. I think is as far as you find your way to feel comfortable on your process and to find something that you make you feel kind of free of thinking and create, it's working. If there are people that need structure, that they need okay, from 10 to 12 then I need to brainstorm and do that things, or sometimes you just because I'm always thinking how we create in the studio, and we are 3 business partners, and we used to work together simultaneously all the time. So
yeah, tell me about that, your creative process maybe.
Yeah, so I think for us is basically became very natural to brainstorm together. The first thing is we are 3 business partners and 3 directors, and what differentiates us is that we don't split projects. So every time a project comes, we gather together and we just start brainstorming, the 3 of us. And I think for me at least, it's what came naturally, because we've been doing this for years, and I personally just spent my 1 year of my life working full time, and the rest was building this space. So for me is what is natural and what I feel comfortable to do. And I think that's the key of being creative. As long as you feel comfortable any way you do, it's working. The most important thing is that you don't feel judged, that you feel that you are in a place that you can speak up and you don't put limit on your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And also, and I'm saying this because we used to work as a team, learn how to be detached of your thoughts. So not be like super jealous, like, oh, I said this idea and probably the idea won't go through something realistically.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need all to learn how to feel detached, but at the same time not limit ourselves. So it's more like speaking up, and maybe the idea that you said it will brought something else in the future, maybe won't go live. But I think as long as you feel comfortable is like the beauty of it. I don't know if it makes sense, but at least for us, what is working.
Do you feel you're in a space where different opinions are welcome and you have the ability to have different opinions? Because I feel like what often happens when you're in a group, especially when you're in a group, in a company, whatever, you're working together really closely, you know each other, there's some kind of friendship maybe even going on, and you tend to, it's like this echo chamber that happens all the time, where you're just reaffirming the opinion you already have by talking to the people that are around you and closest to you. And this is this dynamic that often maybe limits a totally different perspective and view. And I feel like maybe this is important in a creative space as well, to sometimes put out there a different kind of approach than you're used to. Maybe how does it work for you?
I think for us is always like, that every idea is welcome in a way. So I think, of course, you need, as we were saying before, you need some structure. You need to create that space of, okay, this is the time when we create, and we brainstorm. But I think it's also important to be open to, the people you work with, besides us as director, to, make that freedom for other people to speak up. And, everyone has their own opinion. And I think it's important that we know that we have a space where everyone can speak up. So for us, it's more like the idea that works is the better for us. Doesn't really matter who is bringing it up. So I feel that it's important to create that openness in your creative space. And this made me remember, like, a few days ago, a friend was like telling me like how good her boss was, and I was like wondering, like, what is a good boss? What is the characteristic that made her saying that? And when I asked that, she said like, oh, because this person is explaining to me more things that things that I not necessarily need to know. So if you open and you give the perspective and your knowledge to other people, I think it creates that safe space for people to speak up and to understand the background also. Because I don't feel that right now we are in a, at least for us, in a place that, okay, I'm doing this task and no one can do other than me, or this person is doing this task and it is the only thing that has to do for the rest of the day. So I feel that being a bit more fluid in terms of roles, and that will bring to creativity freedom in a way. But yeah, I don't know, I think openness and sharing is the key, I feel.
Yeah.
And make that other person like comfortable to speak up and say. And at least for us, when we are thinking about a project, or maybe it's divided in different levels, so maybe the starting point is us, is the core of our friendship and our way of working. So maybe we set the base, and then we always leave some room for experimentation, for new ideas, and maybe it's a way of for us to create that structure, and then sharing to to the team and see what else can be added or can be changed, because at the end is the collaborative way of working that is important.
Yeah.
And at the same time, because we build the studio without really like having a plan, I feel that's also why it's kind of fluid the way that we work. So I can do, I can speak with a client, but I can also be in the team that is designing. So I feel that right now for us, and I feel in a lot of other company, I hope, there is this kind of openness of the roles. So we are not like, I'm not only a designer, I can bring my ideas to the table, and even our illustrators, if they have new idea or they have new passion project I would like to bring in, I would love for them to feel comfortable to sharing that.
Yeah. I feel like this would be the perfect scenario, especially for someone who is creative and who likes to take on different roles, to have this ability to at least put your mind into different perspectives regarding the roles and what goes with it. But also there might be some danger to it, because it can kind of blur into each other, and there's not a strict, division between it. So maybe the best approach is to always be aware out of what role I'm talking here right now. And especially, this is an interesting question, because also the cultural landscape regarding companies has changed a lot over the last years or decades. And I guess it also depends on the niche where you're working, but it's become more, let's say, more on a friendlier base. It's more about people recognizing, okay, it's not just about I'm telling you what to do and you're doing it. It's more about the collaboration aspect, about sharing, about openness, about asking you, even if you're not the top tier person in the company, asking you, what's your opinion to this approach or whatever, to really incorporate everyone. But this can also lead to difficulties as well if you're not respecting maybe still the hierarchy that's still in place in some way. How do you go about that in your agency or your company?
Yeah, it's tricky, I feel. I think it's something new, and I think it gets trickier the more you are in a team, because of course we started just the three of us, and it was like very undefined. But then when things started to become real, then it was all about collaboration. But as you said, it's true that at some point we were like, okay, I think we need to set up some structure. We need to not say like, oh, I'm the boss, I'm the one decided, but at least, because at the end of the day you have to deliver a product, right? You have to talk with the client, and you need to make sure their expectation and what they pay for, they receive that. So I think it's crucial to define some pillar or like some kind of path where the thing goes. And at least, and probably the key is like make other people understand that if we are here, it's because we have the experience to do that. It's not because I'm the boss and I'm the one deciding. It's just like, okay, trust me, I think this idea is better because I know maybe a little bit more of the background, and not because I'm in a higher hierarchy, I feel. So it's more like the knowledge that I have is probably a bit a bit deeper. So I feel I'm agree with you, and I think it went to a point where some structure and some rules is needed to set it up. But I feel when the time where it's better to be open is probably the creative process, because there is when you get the inspiration. Because I think it's like a balance, because if we always are the same and we know each other so well and we know the way we think, then we kind of get bored of each other. At least it happened to me. Or like the way that I think, sometimes I'm always like keep repeating myself with like, reference of our previous project and stuff like that. So I feel that if you leave the creative aspect open to it, then you get more inspired by other people. But then you have anyway to deliver a project, and you need to be kind of a bit more strict in some other part, maybe in the production. But I feel the creative part, it can be open. It actually helping all of us.
Yeah. Especially maybe because creativity is not always bound to you're not what I'm trying to say is the experience is important that you have in your job and whatever you do, but in a creative space creativity is not linear. Creativity is not always bound to experience. There can be this one thought that you, with all your years of experience, never thought about, and someone
Yeah.
who's just started has this thought. And that's why it's important to put it out there and have the conversation about it, to create something, maybe something new, some new approach or some new design or whatever it is. And also speaking out of a position of someone, because I thought about that as well. Like, I worked in a corporate firm, and this is not really my environment, but still I was in a position where I had the hierarchy and there were people above me. And I asked myself, what does it mean for me to have a good boss? Like, what do I require from this person? And I noticed that for me, first of all, I want to feel valued. How do I feel valued? I feel valued if this person honors my opinion as well, asks me, like, how's it working for you? Do you have any new ideas for this project or whatever? And at the same time, if I feel valued and I respect this person, then I have no trouble with just expecting the direction this person is going to lead us to, or maybe having the final word of saying, hey, in my experience, this is the best approach. Let's do it this way. Then they're like, yeah, I'm fine. I mean, you're incorporating me in this whole process. I respect you. I feel valued. Let's do it. I trust you. And I feel like that's important to really be able to foster this environment with everyone you're working. But before we get too deep into the creative space, because I'm really interested in that, but do you know this? Do you know Spotify Wrapped in these things? Like 2025 is the new
Yeah.
year, and then there's this Wrapped. And I thought about this idea of just asking you, your life Wrapped. I want to know like the key aspects of how you got to the point where you're at right now, because I feel like there's some interesting stories to tell. So maybe you can give me some Carmen Wrapped in
in
whatever 5 to 10 minutes or something like that.
but in what topic? Like related to creative or related to
Related to what I
like
feel is
related to
important to you, but still, when you ask me what's your rap, then I immediately jump into how my mindset kind of changed and what came after these changes. Like, often there's like a new thought that's coming into my head. Maybe I need a change, or I'm not really happy with the place I'm at, and then this manifests itself into my life because I'm moving to another city, or I'm approaching a new career path, or I'm starting the podcast or whatever. This is kind of how it goes for me, if you would ask me. So yeah, just feel free, whatever you feel like has value in it for you in your life.
in life in general, not in 2024.
Yeah, like I feel like it's interesting to know where you come from, because you're from Italy and now you're not living in Italy, and you obviously had some creative paths behind you. So how did
Yeah,
you get to this point,
I
basically?
give you a couple of hints. I think it's very hard. I was not prepared. I was like, I didn't put anything up. No, I think.
Spontaneously.
Okay, the first thing I will say that yes, I'm from Italy and I'm from a really small city. And when I had the opportunity to study in a bigger city that was Milan, I didn't know what to study because I always knew I wanted to do something creative. But at that time, the most creative career was to do fashion design. So I start fashion design, and when I finished, I thought that to work for that in that industry was not creative at all. So I completely like changed and I started studying Stockholm animation. So I think for me, like one key point was what the idea of a creative career was in back when I was 18. And then understanding that the industry that I wanted to kind of get in was not the creative way that I was expecting. So I think that was a key point of saying to my younger self, I don't see myself doing this. I
Mm.
don't see myself, I don't know, working for fashion. I thought that was the most creative thing that I could do, but wasn't actually. So I think that was one of the key point, and start to re-questioning myself, okay, then what? Because I thought that I want to do something more with my hands, like hands in the sense of it could be digitally because this is what I'm doing, but it wasn't for, a fashion brand. It was something digitally, but that where I could put my creativity, as we were saying before. So I think that was like one of the main turning point, and it's actually how I started to be involved in animation and illustration and stuff like that. So I think
So
that
this
was
was
one.
like your change from Milan and then going to Stockholm to
Mm.
study what was it called?
Animation. Well,
Animation. Okay.
yes.
Was
Yeah,
it
yeah.
hard for you to make this decision, and or was it easy? It just came to you, and you're like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just gonna go in this direction.
I think I was in a point where I wanted to have an experience abroad, first of all. And that for me was like, I don't know how it was for you. When did you start, get into, knowing people from other parts of the world? But I think before me going abroad and study abroad, I like my perspective of like other country were different, was just only for travel, not for living. So I think for me was not only the career that I chose, but it was also the experience of working with people from all over the world. I met some amazing people. One of my good friends, it was the first time that he saw snow when we were in Stockholm. So for me, it was like, wow, that is the most exciting thing, to be surrounded with all these people that I will never met if I didn't take this decision. So it's not only for actually what we were studying, but I think for how open we were all, like in a country that is basically dark half of the year,
Yeah.
and be together with people from Indonesia, from Brazil, from wherever. So I think that is the most kind of inspiring thing for me by that time. And I think that led where I'm now, that that we're working with people from all over the world. We work with clients. We are connecting to each other that we never, I wouldn't know if it wasn't for the night. So I think it's kind of like a thread that when I took that decision, it kind of got me excited of how many people and experience are out, and not necessary for the career we are chasing, which is also like a second um kind of path. I think they go hand on hand, because I'm excited for what I'm studying or for I'm working, but I'm also excited because I live in a city right now and it could be in another city tomorrow, but at least I know that I want to get in touch with people that have other perspective than me. So I think that is one of the key. And then now going to like a bit more like the last 2 or 3 years maybe, I start to like get excited about, and also because I'm following my previous thoughts of like knowing new people and knowing new experience. I start to get excited about something that I wouldn't talk of talking with clients. Like a couple of years ago I was like, oh, I'm a designer, I want to do my things, blah blah blah, and I have a studio. But a couple of years ago we were in kind of questioning a lot where we were going in the studio, because when I was saying we kind of started without knowing. We met each other in different studio space, and then we decided to team up as friends. 2 years ago we were like, okay, I think we need to look up for new client and how we get to know new people. And I didn't know that was it could be my role, but now I'm starting to get a bit more excited about like, okay, let's have a meeting, let's talk, or I'm gonna present you what we are doing, blah blah blah. And I think that is something new for me, that I thought I would be in my idea of speaking with client. It was like, oh, I'm a selling person and I don't see myself as creative if I'm doing that.
Yeah.
But in a way it is. Like now I'm kind of rephrasing and say like, oh, but I'm actually knowing a new person, because at the end, yes, it's the client, but I love the fact that someone is living in, I don't know, Houston, and I'm talking to. So I'm start to see the beauty of that, because the perspective that I had a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, that is not what, when we were talking about rules and structure. It's like, oh, I'm not doing this because I'm creative and I don't want to talk with client. And then it's like, but what's wrong with that? Maybe you are creative how you talk with a person, or you get inspired because you talk with someone new. And of course there is always like job in the middle, but so that is also like the turning point of taking the beauty out of something that you have this preconcept of be boring.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's also again about perspective change. And also like you said, there's not this one thing that's creativity, but there's so many different things and you can interpret them in different ways. And I mean, even talking to someone and then figuring out what do they want from me as the creative part in this endeavor is a creative endeavor in it of itself already, you know. So how beautiful is it to, with the right questions and the right approach, to really formulate an idea and then put it into reality, and then the customer or the person is saying, wow, I would have never guessed we could have created this beautiful design or
Yeah.
whatever it is at the end.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I totally agree. It's
Yeah.
often about reframing how you think about it and
And
how
I have
beautiful it
one.
is to
Yeah.
be open to have this experience. And I think this also goes again also comes back to, like, you're a person who you open yourself up to having new experiences by going abroad, for example, meeting new people, and your whole world just opens up and you get to talk to different people, meet different cultures, meet different people from diverse creative spaces, and then you have this whole new idea of what life could be.
Exactly. And it's just like when things happen, sometimes I think I'm really grateful of the question you asked. No, I was a bit like scared. It was like, oh my god, I didn't prepare anything. But actually, I'm really grateful because sometimes when you wish you have someone asking you the right questions, you start thinking of what the good answer for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was not like thinking about it. Like when I took some decision, I didn't know that will bring me this answer back then. For me, it was like, oh, I don't know, I don't feel creative anymore. I want to do something different. I want to study abroad. But I didn't know that that decision will probably affect what I'm doing now. Because I don't know, I like to know new people from all over the world. I like to, be in contact with clients. I like to, doing podcasts with people that I don't know. So I think probably that decision 20 years ago, I wouldn't thought of that would bring me where I'm now, but it is. So it's all like the matter of finding the right question to be asked.
Yeah, seriously. It's about the questions you ask yourself and the questions you ask the people around you. I totally believe that. Because it also shows me, your answer shows me, and your approach shows me some kind of side or value of yourself, because you could also choose not to see the value in these decisions and be a little pessimistic about it, maybe about your past. Oh, I wasn't sure about that, and then I did it, and I didn't really know why I did it. I'm not happy about it, you know. But you can also choose to see how you benefited from it, what you learned from it, and then you can. It gives me more confidence in my own life when I'm looking back. I had these decisions at the moment I didn't know why I was doing it. Then I'm looking back and I'm like, yeah, okay, it made sense that I whatever moved cities or whatever, and then it gives me confidence for the future, because I know I'm going to eventually get to a point where I have to make these decisions again and I'm unsure about it. I don't really know why I'm doing it. I'm maybe feeling unsatisfied or not happy or whatever. But I know a couple years later or even a couple months later, I'm going to look back and I'm going to realize, oh, this was good for something. And this is kind of so one philosophy that I have for myself. Life is happening for you, not against you. And if
it's all like the setting, right? It's all like how you decide to see that, as you said before. There are a lot of things that's going to happen in our life, and it's all like a matter of the perspective we are giving and the way that we are seeing this, because it could easily be that an event passed and I cannot see the benefit of it. But if we are open enough to see it in after the time passed, I'm open to see what is the benefit of that. Even if the decision or the event was not positive itself, it's still like a learning, okay, what I can take from this experience. And instead of, say like, oh my God, I did this wrong, I took this wrong decision, and probably it's going to lead me to something else that is going to be worse. It's all like a matter of how we open ourselves and to, be ready and receive whatever happened and find not only the positivity, but like, okay, what I learned from this.
Yeah.
This was like, it was maybe not the most wise decision, but if I did it, I'm sure at some point I will see the benefit of it.
It's kind of like, I mean, you can say I made a wrong turn or I made a bad decision or I failed, but you could also choose to see it as a learning, and it doesn't change anything at the end, but it changes how you approach new things as well. And if you're thinking about a new challenge and you're thinking about it as learning in everything you're doing, then it becomes less scary. You just do it because you're like, yeah, why do I have to lose? Nothing. I'm just going to learn from it. So yeah, and that takes away the pressure in some sense a little bit and helps you grow continually. And that's what I noticed for myself. I want to grow continually. I want to approach new things, and I want to fail because it means I learned something new. Because otherwise I would have, like, I would be maybe in this comfortable numbness of my comfort zone. Yeah, that's fine. People do it. I understand it. It's safe. It feels safe, at least. I don't think it's safe, but it feels safe. So I understand why people do it. But if I ever, if I get again into a situation where I, at the beginning, maybe not feel so comfortable and I push through it, then I feel so good afterwards, and it doesn't really matter what happened. I just know I pushed myself over this boundary, and now the boundary is somewhere else. It started here and now it's here. So yeah, it's beautiful.
It's great. But this made me think of the last anecdote of, actually it was the beginning of 2025. So I went hiking around here, and I was alone, and I saved a trail in the app. So it was like a loop. So from my starting point, I was doing kind of a circle. It was actually like a triangle or whatever. So the path was always new, and I was coming back in the same point. And I started hiking, and it was great because I was alone. It was the beginning of the year, and it was like kind of refreshing if what I wanted to do. And halfway through, I realized that my phone was kind of dying, so I couldn't see the GPS. I was like, oh my God, if I'm finished the path, probably I'm not gonna know what path I will follow. So I decided to, instead of, finish the path, going backwards and doing from wherever I am to going back to the point A that I was. And when I started going backwards and took that decision, it kind of made me super, I don't know, surprised, because we always look for things that look new all the time, but actually me taking the decision of I'm going to go back, and it wasn't at all doing something that I already knew. It was doing something completely different because the path is different and my thoughts are different, and actually it was not even like a path that I was used to do. It is something completely new. So even if I'm doing backwards, it's still new for me. So it made me think why we are always looking for the most new thing, what is the most exciting option we have, when sometimes just changing the perspective of something that we know is already different, So that's my closure and beginning of 2025.
Do you know Dr. Wayne Dyer? He has this saying: if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that's basically what you said. I can always decide to look at something differently. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm trying to remember, let's say, what my kitchen looks like. And I'm like, what does my kitchen look like? And then I go into the kitchen and I look at the table and the water heater. And I'm like, I feel like I've never seen this before. Because I see details and elements of it that I couldn't remember. I haven't really noticed them. And sometimes I get even this weird feeling that, wow, this is my door. I didn't know I had this door.
I didn't know I had a door.
So it's all about focusing your attention on things and deciding to maybe look at it from a different perspective. And this is also what I feel like lacks sometimes nowadays, because we are in our echo chamber of opinions, and it's uncomfortable to sometimes step out of this comfort zone and be like, hey, Carmen, what's your opinion about this and that, or why do you think this or that, or also political themes. Just, it doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but tell me why you're thinking the way you're thinking, and then I can maybe reconsider some things, or maybe we can approach it together and get to some point of mutual understanding.
Is that a question?
No, it's not a question. It's just like a statement.
I was like, I'm agreeing because I was like, what? I just said I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I didn't know if I have anything else to add, but it's more like, how can I say that, as you were saying, like it's a matter of receive from the other the perspective that they have or the way of looking the thing, just for letting me understand the other more. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna be agree with you or not. It's just like a way of knowing a bit more or
Yeah.
get inspired. Because I remember when I was thinking about doing the podcast, it's like, okay, what inspired us? And of course it's easy to, doing the job because we know how we're doing and we're creative and we have our kind of way of working that during the year is kind of, it's repetitive, even if create something new all the time. But sometimes, as I was saying before, we get bored of each other because we know so much, blah, blah, blah. And the idea of having people that could be, have a conversation over podcast, have a new freelancer coming to the studio, it give us, a new perspective of, even, it could be even something easy as, I'm painting this thing with this new tool. And it's something that I wouldn't do it because, we are creative, but we also like structure in a way. So we always like, and we live in a world that needs things faster and faster. So if you know this thing is going to be quick, then you're going to do it and then repeat that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But, it's how open you are to receive inspiration and input. And it could be something super easy as talking about movie at lunch, So yeah, I'm basically, to your statement, I'm agree in general. Even though sometimes it's hard to have statement, and when you have the tool of creating something visual, because I feel that it's very thin, the line. Everyone has opinion right now, and everyone is so easy to give opinion to what you put out there. So to be bold and say like, oh, I'm not agree with this thing, is gonna be eventually a lot of people that are gonna be against you, because it's so easy to give opinion, and luckily, I like that. But it's so easy to, find someone that is 100% agree with you, and it's all a matter of how brave you are to put your statement out there. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm thinking about, I don't know why this word integrity popped into my head, because what I thought about is I would rather have a conversation or have someone in my life that has maybe a totally different opinion to a topic, but has integrity about it and knows what the person is talking about. So in some sense, you can trust this person because this person has its value structure and knows their opinion, rather than having a person that's maybe just being influenced by everyone around them and doesn't really know what their values are. So I would rather have this person in my life and talk to them. It's not always hard if you talk to someone who has a different opinion. It's not always easy. That's what I'm trying to say. But that kind of popped into my head, and it comes back to just knowing who you are, who you want to be, where your values lie, being open about changing your perspective, but still knowing, okay, this is what I stand for, and I'm also gonna formulate my opinion and stand by it, and not just, be a leaf in the wind and just flow wherever the wind takes me.
Yeah, it's just that I'm completely agree, and it's connected to what I was saying of being able to be detached of your thoughts, detached in the sense like, okay, I'm open to receive other opinion that I'm stand for, and because it gives me different perspective, but I'm still standing for, it doesn't mean that I need to change my opinion because someone is saying it to me. So I think that is one point. And also related to what you were saying, like, oh, I prefer someone that have an opinion different than mine, but at least has some integrity and some knowledge. And, that opinion that is given me is because has some fundamental thing on the way that this person like to live or like to believe, whatever. But also it kind of underline how someone is caring of a topic in general. Because I think right now it's so easy to, floats and get influenced. But if you have a strong opinion that you are explaining to me at least what I'm seeing or what I'm receiving, that you spend time questioning yourself. And I think that is like the most important thing for me right now. Of course, it's hard, as you said, to have conversation with people that have opinion different, like they think differently than you. But if they give me a fundamental reason, at least I'm getting that they spending time and energy to find opinion that reflect them.
Yeah.
Which I think is harder. I think it's easier to just say like, oh, I'm not good with that, just for the sake of it,
Yeah.
Maybe because we are too intense. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes we are. So let's get a little bit back to creative things. Niceshit. I like the name still, by the way. I love it. So tell me a little bit about that. What's your vision? Do you have a mission? Where do you want to go?
Nice. Thankful. 2 years ago, we started working with our strategies planner. So now I can kind of answer a bit better, because I think 2 years ago we were like, oh, I don't know you. I don't know what we are. We know what we're doing. I know what I like, but I don't know what we stand for. So, okay. Yes. So basically we are an animation and illustration studio. And I think what defines us, first of all, is like working a lot with character and humor. That is like the main two things that pop in my mind if I have to describe what we are doing. But also something that move us is to working with emotions and storytelling, which is something that we feel that we want to, is what is drive us and kind of trigger us to do what we are doing still after 12 years now. So I feel that we find like a spot where we love what we are doing, and luckily we have audience, hence fans, like people around us that love what we're doing, but also luckily clients. So we have a way of telling story that we want to create that feeling of that could be me, because you work with character, you work with humor. So our intention is to be relatable and memorable at the same time, and that it can be created with humor, with metaphor or whatever. The tools are infinite in a way, but if we find a way to be memorable for our client, for our fan, I think that is what we want to. Is because we work in advertising, and then it's very easy to just follow the rule and be literal of the message we are following. But there are thousands of ways to telling a story, and if we can find a way to kind of stand it up a little bit more, it will be kind of a bit more inspiring for us and for the people that are watching.
Yeah.
And I think humor is one of the key also of the way we work. And a couple of months ago, we were in Australia talking in a conference, and while we were researching to what we're going to talk about, and they were asking like, oh, how do you like to work? What is your vision? And we said like, yeah, we work with character, and we play a lot with humor and stuff like that. And one sentence from Trevor Noah was, humor is the closest that you can get with someone without touching it. So I feel that is kind of the intention, is we can say a message and we can work in advertising, but at least if we make people smile, at least it's something that is chemical. It kind of connect with the viewer, and it still hopefully work for the client as well and for the brand we're working for. So I think that is kind of the vision and the mission in a way.
What would you say is the secret to designing a character or a concept that evokes emotion and truly resonates with the people who are watching it?
I think for us is create that feeling of someone to be related with what we are saying or what the situation we are describing. What I was saying before, okay, we were working on a project for mental health, so we create a lot of different character, and they were like it was for supporting first responders and doctors that suffer from mental health. So we create this video with different character, and each character represents an emotion and a kind of a symptom and a way that someone can feel while mental health problems. And that was the key for us, was like, okay, you have this, let's say 6 or 7 shade of what can happen to you, and at least one there is always representing you. Like, if I'm suffering from stress, from panic attack or whatever, I think there are people that can feel related. So I think that is one of our kind of way to connect with people, to make it relatable. In that case was to create something for mental health, but it could be, we didn't launch yet, but we are working on something about like how we can make your sleep better, or what is your sleep routine. And I think, and for us it was the topic came up because it was something that we were always talking in the studio. It's like always like doing like a checking when we were coming in the studio and say like, oh, today I sleep like I didn't sleep well, or yesterday I watched a movie and my sleep was horrible, blah blah blah. So it kind of like the common topic that we had a couple of months ago, and we're like, oh, I think we can do a project about this without being too how to say mandatory. It's not what people have to do. It's just like a collection of experience or what can be helping or related to other people. And that is like, you create character that have certain attitude, and is very likely that someone will relate to one of our character. I think that's the trick.
Yeah.
So I think it's being relatable and memorable, and it's kind of connected. So yeah.
Do you have a dream project, something that you would dream of doing in the future?
It's hard. I think we have a list of things that we wanted to do. We every year we like to things go far on thinking. I don't know if I have a dream project. I would love to do things a bit more. I hate this expression with my hands, but I don't like the expression. But I feel like something a bit more tactile, and then maybe make it digital. But I know we did it in the past, and I think sometimes it's more like I wish we have more break that let us stand out of our machine more. That is not like a dream project, because I have a lot of topics that I would like to touch. But again, when we do of course personal project and studio project, but as I was saying before, sometimes when you have statement and you have topic that you want to talk about, because we work digitally, our project can receive a lot of backlash or whatever, which is good, but you never know what you can talk completely. Sometimes it's just very tricky when you work with commercial and advertising in general. When you want to work with out of your laptop, it's very hard to let client know you want to do that. And I mean, it's always like, until you're not sure what you wanted to do, it's very hard for people to get in touch with you with that. So yeah, it's still my wish. I think it's like my dream project. My answer was going out of the computer more, but I don't know if it's like I think it's for seeking of inspiration and get used again to how we feel when we work without a screen. I think it's more not because I want to upload something that we did it analogically. It's more for the process of doing it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense what I'm saying. It's more
Totally.
like, oh, I wanna know how I feel without not having like common set.
Yeah, totally. I feel like that's all natural as well. When I'm thinking about how many hours I'm sitting in front of a laptop screen, looking at my fucking phone, it's not. I know that it's not natural in some sense, and I know that it doesn't give me the satisfaction as something would give me, like being in nature, touching something with my hands, creating something with my hands. That's a totally different satisfaction. And so yeah, the question is, how can we maybe balance that in a sustainable, healthy way of also not losing our creativity in the sense of handcrafted or more artisan things. I mean, some people maybe are not missing it, but I always notice when I'm doing something, when I'm working with wood or something else, I have the satisfaction that I wouldn't get from just sitting in front of this computer screen and cutting a video or, yeah, whatever I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's more like for the process and see myself from, like, imagine I'm doing something with my hand. I want to be another Carmen and look at me while I'm doing it, because I feel that I already know how I look like when I'm working on my screen and, give feedback or design or whatever. So I know already, like, if I imagine myself on my day-to-day, studio day, which is exciting. I'm not complaining. I think it is just it's more the repetition. I feel that if I will always do crafty things, then probably I will be like, oh my god, I wish I could, I could draw something in my iPad and not worrying too much, or cutting wood. So I think it's more like the repetition. Of course, everything is digital, so my wish is always to kind of, how can I see the Carmen that is doing things on our hand. And also, again, to the question of the dream project, is that something besides being crafty or analog or whatever, I think is something that will not make us worry on the outcome. Do things because you feel to do it and you want to experience that without worrying too much about where it's going to be posted, what is you going to come out of that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like the opposite of what we were saying before, like, every decision we make, that it has to be for a reason, which is great as well. But I think when we work creatively, sometimes lately we are worrying too much why we're doing this. Maybe it's just for the process. Maybe it's because you just want to hold, a crayon or whatever, but you don't have to worry, oh my god, how I'm going to post it on Instagram or whatever. I think it's more like just for the sake of taking something with your hand without thinking what's the message, what's the goal.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I think it all fits together because it's about the journey, it's about the way, like you're saying, it's not about the goal, it's about the journey, and blah blah blah, but there's some truth to it. So it's not about having the finished product in your hands, because then you're like, yeah, it's nice, but okay, yeah, I have it now, I have it, okay, fine, next, off to the next thing. But if you start enjoying this process, and it can be creative process, it can be something else, then I think that's what life is in some sense about. So I aspire to be more in a space where I am trying to express what I want to express, and not because I want to have this specific result, but just because I enjoy doing it and it feels right, and I'm having fun doing it. I'm not saying I totally 100% all the time are doing it. Also with the podcast, sometimes it gets into my head, I have to ask these questions because otherwise it wouldn't be interesting. And then afterwards I notice for myself, yeah, that was a good question, but I didn't really feel this question. It wasn't my question. So then it comes back to the question, what do you want to express? What are your values behind it? And I feel like if you stick to what makes it valuable for you, in the long run, it will be authentic and you will have integrity, and people will love it for that, because I'm convinced people are feeling it if you are being authentic and you're being yourself and you're having fun while doing it. That becomes electrifying. That becomes something you are drawn to, and that inspires you. Not having the perfect scripted question, concept, or something else.
Yeah, definitely. That's also why I think your question about the wrap of your life is so important, because it makes you think like, okay, I didn't think about this if I didn't have this question asked. So yeah, I agree. Although I feel that sometimes we have to also worry a bit less of what, I mean, as you said, like, I think if you do something because you're passionate about what you're doing, then eventually people will like it because they will understand. But also, I feel that it's fine if not everyone like us, you know?
Yeah, totally.
I think at some point it's like, okay, whatever, you know, I'm doing this because I'm comfortable and it's what I want to do. No one would like us completely.
Yeah.
There is always like, okay, I want to do this. And now that I'm answering this, I'm talking about this, it kind of inspired me, because sometimes when we have personal project, and I was saying before, like sometimes we have topic we want to talk about, and we had like an idea of doing something about, you know, over information and things like that, like kind of that was the overall concept. And then we were like, oh my god, but if we do like a project like this, then people will criticize us because not everyone will gonna be agree with what we are saying. But now that I'm talking about this, maybe the idea is just doing it because you want to talk about and not worry of, you know, people don't like each other completely all the time, and it's fine, you know. Yeah.
People are gonna judge you no matter what, you know?
Yeah.
It's just gonna happen. If you're doing the thing, they're gonna judge you. If you're not doing the thing, they're gonna judge you. So why not just do the thing you want to do?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it's already your passion or something like this has to develop. And I mean, you can start with something and then notice, okay, it's not the right, like you look back and you're like, okay, that was fine. It led me to this point. Looking back, it wasn't the path for me, but I was authentic at the moment. It's not who I am, but I was authentic at the moment. So that's important. So yeah, and I feel like that's what happens in daily life as well. You're just trying to be yourself and be authentic and do the things you love, and you will draw the people towards you in your life that feel connected to you on that basis. And there are going to be plenty of people who are not feeling connected to you on that basis, and then that's fine, you know.
Yeah,
So I think
it's
really ignore a little bit and that's hard
Exactly.
for me because I am someone who's really externally oriented, so I really notice what's happening around me. I'm not so self-centered, and that limited me also in the past because I did stuff because I felt like this would create the harmony around me, and I neglected maybe my desires or what I wanted to do. So I feel I'm trying to approach everything more about, this is, I like to do it, not on purpose hurting other people. I'm still someone who's really empathetic, but still being by my, like doing what I like to do, and knowing that the people who love me for who I am, they will be in my life, and the people who don't understand it, who are whatever, they're just, you know, gonna vanish over time, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's actually that okay part that is what is triggering us sometimes, is because we want to be liked. And I think when we understand that not everyone is going to like us, I think it's let it go and accept that. That is, at least for me, is because I would love everyone to like me. And I think it's like the let it go part of like, it's fine. Not everyone is going to do that. And it's more like not about them. It's more like working with myself, that is fine if I don't have the agreement or the appreciation for everyone, because as we were saying before, maybe it's like learning that not everyone is going to think as we do, and just working on ourselves and accept that more than forcing ourselves to have as much appreciation as we could just because it's more comfortable, which is not, because then it's kind of led to something that will not be authentic and kind of go towards a fake kind of feeling.
And then you're looking for validation in the outer world, and if you're always looking for validation from someone else, you're never going to be satisfied, because you can, and then noticing it's already in yourself. I just have to give myself validation that I'm okay, that I'm good, and then everything becomes more calm, and you're being more yourself, and you're being more centered, and I think that's a good thing. But it takes time and experience, in my view, to understand that for yourself. And everyone gets to this point on a different road, and some people never get there, So I feel privileged and really grateful already that this is my worldview right now, because it helps me to be more, just be me and not worry too much about what other people think about me. It's still there, the voice is still there, but it gets a little
and
wider.
Is doing the podcast still moving you?
What do you mean by moving?
Like that is, inspired you are not at the point like, oh my god, I have to record the episode because I have a plan. It's still something that is, moving in the sense that inspire you, excite you.
Yeah, it's this kind of wave progression. I had episodes as well, not episodes in the sense of an episode I recorded, but parts or paths or time frames where I was like, there's something that I'm not satisfied with, and it's now necessary for me to go into this maybe uncertainty and see why I'm not happy with it. And that took a little bit, because maybe looking at something that is not going well is harder than looking at something that is going well. So, and it usually means, okay, I did something not wrong, but I did something that I would do differently in the future, and now I have the ability or the chance to adjust it. So this happened like recently. I think in November I had this like kind of phase where like I was like, not really happy with this episode, the questions they asked, whatever. And but then I had the chance to inspire myself and be like, okay, but what do you want to do next? Like, how do you want to approach it, that it's more you, that you're having more fun doing it? And this then again inspired me. And it was kind of also, it's the journey of someone who is having some kind of project on the side that they're doing. It's not going to be always uphill. There are going to be valleys, and there are going to be doubts and uncertainties. And then in the moment realizing, okay, it's good that it's here because it helps me grow again.
Yeah, it's like questioning yourself. It's like kind of re-questioning yourself what you're doing, and how can you make it differently so you can still feel inspired. And I think it's working in all the field, like even in work, or like as we were saying before, like personal project for you. I guess your podcast, it's a way of find inspiration, but also have a side project for you and for others. So I feel like the repetition and working in this systematic way, sometimes it let us kind of be a bit further than the main point that was find inspiration. So I think it's not only the repetition, but not like being centered and like ask, okay, how I will do it differently to find inspiration or find motivation again. I think it's super legit, and I think I feel it's already healthy to understand that you are not feeling motivated, because you could go for years, and it's already a good sign in a way that you are questioning, okay, I'm feeling like a bit wavy and I'm like not super inspired as I was before, and questioning how I can make it different so I get my motivation again. I think it's already like a really good sign of do things as you want to.
Yeah, and probably also just natural to get to this point where you're questioning some things, and then you can prove to yourself that you really want to do it. Because I could also decide after some uncertainty, I don't want to do it anymore, and that would be fine, that would be okay, but still I can prove to myself all over again, okay, this is why I'm doing it. I really like it. I value what I do here. I'm grateful for it. So how can I create it going into the future into something that I really, really enjoy? I even enjoy more than doing it right now. And I think these phases are going to come again. But
yeah, exactly.
I'm prepared. I'm not trusting that this phase is not going to come again. I'm trusting in the ability of myself to handle it. And I think that's important in every aspect of life. What advice would you give your younger self when you're looking back at young Carmen?
We are always young. No, I'm joking. To my younger self, follow your passion and instinct in a way, I feel. And if as we were, I think it's connected to what we were saying before, like maybe it's like that it's good to not ask all the time why I'm doing things. That it will come for a reason at some point. I think that it will be the advice.
So maybe like do it and decide to look back and see the reason in the past somehow. Connect the dots looking backwards somehow.
Yeah, I think it would be more like remember if things happen, then you will see it, look it backwards for a reason, Yeah. I think that would be kind of the advice.
Closing question, Carmen. I think I already spoiled it, but what does bridging worlds mean to you in your life or your work?
Yeah, I think for me, I was thinking about the meaning, and first of all, it's connection. Like the first word that it pops in my mind when I read the title, it will be connection. And I think it's, the positivity of having a opportunity to start thinking about what connection is. And it's the way we connect and how we connect it and through who, but also the possibility of start like thinking what connection is for me. That is, human, and be, go back to that kind of origin of asking for suggestion of, when you go to a new city and ask for a nice restaurant or nice place to do without looking in TripAdvisor. I think it's something like that, so I will say like human connection, it would be the answer. But also and this is more like a thank for the opportunity to be invited to the podcast than the answer to your question. But I think it's also left the space and the possibility to start thinking about what we are doing and what are our intention. That sometimes we work on this kind of structured way, even if in the creative field, but we don't really answer some certain questions. So I think having the space and the possibility to think is already like a kind of a safe space and a nice kind of portion of ourselves that sometimes it's just not questioning too much. So yeah, I think it would be it. What is bridging world for you?
For me, it's about connection as well, like you said, because we kind of teased it already. I feel like nowadays we are all living in these echo chambers and sometimes are not being as open as we could be to the conversation with people from different perspectives, maybe even values. So for me, it's about being able to step into different perspectives, talking to different people, and really listening. Because it sounds easy, but it's hard to really listen. And listening is not just listening, but listening is also asking the right questions if I don't understand you. And even sometimes talking about the definition of something you're saying, because I can say one word and you can understand something totally different from what I'm saying, just based on your filters and your experience you had in your life. So I feel like if we are open to this conversation, open to listening, asking questions, then we can get to a point where we kind of understand each other and can respect each other and accept. Doesn't mean that I have to be that I adjust my values or my opinions like right at that point, but I think then we will notice, okay, we are way more similar than we thought we would be. That's bridging world for me.
That's good. Really good answer. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Carmen, thank you for being on the show. It was so much fun talking to you, and also thank you for taking the time.
No, thank you for inviting us and me.
You're very, very welcome. Very, very welcome.
My plans.
And if people want to stay in touch with everything you're doing and maybe need your help in some creative endeavor, where should they go?
They can email me at Carmen at Niceshit.tv. So Niceshit Studio is the studio we create, and they can find me there on my email and on my Instagram, Carmen Angelillo, if people want to talk to me. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And see you in the next one soon.
Yes, thanks.